In any kind of chemical reaction, there are sometimes factors, things that aren't involved in the chemical reaction, that become important parts of the reaction having success. When we're talking about things from a kinetic standpoint, one of the things that we typically cover is the role of a catalyst in a chemical reaction. There's a really dramatic and spectacular example of catalysis that you can do that involves the decomposition of hydrogen peroxide. In this case, we're going to be using iron 3 ions to cause the decomposition of the hydrogen peroxide. Now, for this demonstration, I will be using 30% hydrogen peroxide, so it's very important that if you're using a peroxide concentration this high that you protect your hands.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Di sini kami akan membahas tentang video laju reaksi. Dilihat dari video, dia menggunakan 30% hidrogen peroksida sebagai oksidan. Oksidan adalah reaktan yang mengoksidasi atau menghilangkan elektron dari reaktan lain selama reaksi redoks.
Hidrogen peroksida merupakan oksidan yang memiliki jumlah oksigen beraktif tinggi 47% dan produk sampingnya berupa H2O, sehingga ini dapat mengalami dekomposisi bersamaan dengan reaksi oksidasi aktivitas katalase sehingga membutuhkan jumlah H2O2 yang berlebih.
Also definitely want a large chemical splash tray for doing this demonstration. You can purchase them from Flynn. In my school we have a photography lab, and the photography teacher periodically has to get rid of the dishes that they use for developing the portraits and the prints after they've illuminated the light on them. She gave me her old splash trays, and they're chemically inert substances, so I have lots of splash trays that I can use in my classroom. So talk to your photo teacher if you have one in your building and get them to just give you the old trays whenever they get rid of them. It's another way to increase your supply of chemical splash trays. You'll also notice that I have the test tube vertical here. This is the way we always tell our students never to heat anything, but for this reaction, because it's going to generate a lot of gas and will eventually explode upward, I want it to go straight up and come straight down. In this case, I don't want it to be angled. This is not a lesson in projectile motion. We want things to go straight up and down, not across the entire countertop. So I'm going to add a catalyst. The catalyst I'm going to add to this is iron 3 chloride. This is a 0.1 molar solution. Iron 3 chloride does give you a nice
Lalu dia menuangkan cairan kuning sebagai katalisnya. Katalis yaitu suatu zat yang mempercepat laju reaksi dari suatu reaksi kimia untuk katalisnya tersendiri. Dia menggunakan iron klorida 3, terlihat dari laju reaksi yang sangat cepat dari hidrogen peroksida terhadap iron klorida 3. Dilihat dari perubahan warna cairan yang bermulanya tidak berwarna dan berubah menjadi coklat tua, terjadi reaksi yang sangat cepat mengubah reaksi hidrogen peroksida menguap dan mengeluarkan asap, tetapi menyisakan sedikit cairan kuning dan iron klorida 3. Di bawah reaksi itu sendiri, dilihat di mana percepatan laju reaksi pada suhu tertentu menurunkan energi suatu reaksi tanpa mempengaruhi hasil reaksi.
So if I have 20 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide, I'll use 20 milliliters of water, add the same amount of iron chloride beforehand, so they can see that it's really just a dilution of the iron chloride that's happening here. It's not actually being chemically changed to new substance at the end. The interesting thing about a catalyst, though, is that catalysts aren't used up as part of the reaction rate or the reaction process. So if a catalyst isn't consumed, it's put back at the end of the chemical reaction, I should be able to use this again. So if I pour some more hydrogen peroxide in here, we should see the exact same chemical reaction. And I'll pour just a little bit this time because we just want to see the bubbling. But you can see again that dark brown reaction intermediates formed, the rapid evolution of oxygen gas. And so the reaction will foam over again. And again, after the reaction's finished, we go back to that yellow color that we saw, that yellow-orange color that we saw for iron 3 chloride. And you can do this multiple times and show kids that a catalyst keeps being reused. So, well, this is handy if you're going to speed up a reaction for a commercial or an industrial process. You want something that's going to be reusable. You're going to consume less stuff. And so if you have a catalyst, you don't have to keep putting new stuff in there. And I tie this often into the catalytic converters that are in your automobiles. You have a honeycomb mesh of all of these metals that the hot exhaust gets fed through. Well, your catalytic converter is really pretty good for the life of your car. Eventually it does get gummed up with some deposits, but you want something that can keep being reused and reused and reused. Recycling is an important thing. Now, another thing that's interesting, Lots of things can catalyze the decomposition of hydrogen peroxide. One of them is ultraviolet light. So you'll notice that most manufacturers, when you buy it in the store, or if you buy it from Flynn, you'll see that they come in these very opaque, dark brown plastic bottles. This keeps the ultraviolet light from getting into the hydrogen peroxide. But the hydrogen peroxide, on its own accord, is going to naturally decompose into water and into oxygen gas. That's the reason Flynn sells these in the sort of accordion style, so that they'll expand if the pressure ever increases. That will keep it from building up pressure and splashing hydrogen peroxide in your skin when you open the cap. But the other thing that they do is they often add phosphate ions to your hydrogen peroxide to stabilize it. Phosphate ions will act as an inhibitor, something that prevents the decomposition from happening in this case. So the way you can show the role of an inhibitor, and if you teach a biology class, or you can also show this for your biology teacher if you want to, I'm going to pour some of this in, and I've got some sodium phosphate ready to go, and I'll add the inhibitor once I get the bubbling going. I'll add the inhibitor so students can see the role of what happens when an inhibitor is added to a reaction. This one requires a little bit of dexterity, so I'll add the peroxide in.
Larutan hidrogen peroksida terurai menjadi oksigen, menghasilkan uap jika langsung dicampurkan dengan ion klorida 3. Tetapi ketika dia menuangkan sodium fosfat terhadap pelambatan laju reaksi terhadap hidrogen peroksida dengan diri, reaksi gelembung yang masih terjadi tetapi tidak ada uap ataupun asap yang keluar dengan cepat. Besarnya gelembung ditentukan dari volume katalis yang dicampurkan. Sodium tersebut digunakan sebagai zat penghambat reaksi saja agar tidak mempercepat laju reaksi.
So you can nicely show the demonstration of both catalysis and inhibition of a chemical reaction. It's a really nice one that I like for showing reaction intermediates, for showing the role of a
Baik,
catalyst.
jadi kesimpulan dari video ini adalah hidrogen peroksida merupakan salah satu oksidan dalam reaksi epoksidasi. Berdasarkan harga potensi redoksnya, oksidan ini termasuk kuat, namun dalam aplikasinya memerlukan aktivasi terlebih dahulu. Aktivator yang sering dipergunakan adalah katalis. Di video sendiri, katalis yang digunakan adalah ion klorida 3. Sekian, terima kasih.